After spending a really long time flipping stuff on the auction house on Area 52, I was able to save up and get the Conquest of Azeroth travel guide. I had ordered this new microphone that hadn't showed up yet, so instead of starting to make videos right away, I ended up making a Reaper and hitting level 40 just to kind of get a feel for what Conquest of Azeroth was like. Like, it had completely slipped my mind that they implemented Dragonflight talents into this server, and that was really cool. I was excited as hell when I seen that. Anyways, the microphone ended up showing up last night while my girlfriend was over, and I couldn't decide what class to start the video series with, and I had her sit down and actually read the class descriptions because she's never even played World of Warcraft before, and after a lot of reading and whittling and narrowing it down, she ended up choosing the Knight of Xoroth. I'm going to leave this on the screen for a second if you guys want to read more about the class, but this is going to be what I start the series with. Okay, so here we are in Shadowglen on my Draenei Knight of Xoroth. In my inventory, you'll see I have an Aura of Experience and some Potions of Experience because I used some of the copper I've been saving up for the last few years of playing on this server. Anyways, you'll notice we're in Shadowglen even though we're a Draenei because I'm pretty sure on Conquest of Azeroth, they give you your starting zone based off the class you pick and not necessarily the race you are. Don't quote me on that because I haven't looked into it too much. That's just what I've noticed. Like when I made my Reaper, they actually put me in the Undead starting zone even though she's a Blood Elf. So starting off, our only ability right now is Demon Strike, which is % weapon damage, which usually means two-hander, unless they have like a nerf two-hander modifier on it. So I'm pretty sure this is like a two-handed melee class. It also says it generates rage, which means we're a rage build class as well. The thing about this Demon Strike ability is it's an instant cast, kind of like Sinister Strike, but it has a cooldown on it, which makes it feel more like Heroic Strike. So I don't know, it's still pretty cool though. Alright, level 2 we got Infernal Strike, which is basically the same thing. It's just a little stronger, and it's actually a rage dump. So we'll build up our rage with Demon Strike, and then we'll dump it with Infernal Strike. And since the cooldowns are kind of similar, you can kind of weave back and forth between them, which is kind of a good synergy, except for when the cooldowns kind of overlap like that. But I'm sure we'll be getting more abilities soon to fill in that downtime. I also just realized that because of the Vanity Sync, I actually have my Bloodied Arcanite Reaper, and I have a full set of cloth heirloom gear that I could put on, but it's cloth. It's int stam gear, and I feel like this class is going to be strength based. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure since it's rage built, it's going to be, you know, strength based. So I'm not sure if I want to equip that or not. I mean, I might just for the bonus XP, just to speed things up, but I'm not sure if that's the best idea. Now that we leveled up to level 4, it says your Infernal Strike and Demon Strike abilities now generate Deathfire. Other spells consume these stacks for increased effectiveness, which I'm assuming is this up here. Usually, like when I was playing my Reaper, there's souls that you build up. All your resource trackers are going to be up here for the classes, it looks like, but you can see right there, you know, you can right click to customize it or drag it to move it. I'm just going to leave mine there though. Yeah, so the guy that popped up, I think he was actually talking about our new Skull Taker ability. This one does 50% weapon damage, but it consumes all your stacks of Deathfire, and you can have up to 6 stacks of Deathfire, and each stack it consumes increases its damage by 40%, so you could cap it out at about 240% bonus damage plus 50% weapon damage. So if you have all 6 stacks, this is actually almost 300% weapon damage. And like I said, this has a 3-second cooldown, but you could weave this in between the cooldowns of Demon Strike and Infernal Strike now, which I think is going to make the class feel really smooth. I play with my volume really low so it doesn't like get picked up by the mic, and I didn't notice that my sound effects weren't on, so I turned those back on. So hopefully that sounds better now. The Knight of Xoroth trainer over here actually has a quest for us, so we're going to pick that up and see what we get from it. A Hellfire Hauberk. Okay, we're up to maximum stacks of Deathfire, so I'm just going to hit this guy with Skull Taker for an absolute decimating one-shot. That's insane. Alright, let's see if we can one-shot this guy. Nope, couldn't, but we can just about two-shot. And we can save this guy for the quest. And he's going to give us a Tracker's Dagger, which I can't even use, unfortunately. But actually, even if I could, I have the Arcanite Reaper, so we actually just unlocked the stance at level 6. Pestilence of Famine. Emanating a pestilence causing each of your Deathfire consumed to heal you for 1% of your maximum health. So remember how I said Skull Taker can get up to about 290% weapon scaling damage if you're at max stacks? Yeah, that'll also heal you for 6% of your maximum HP, which is kind of insane. I'm not sure what level it's available from, but you can come over to this guy at a very low level and do this quest, and he will give you a free mount that matches your racial. So even though we're not in the Draenei starting zone, he still gives me the Draenei mount, which is right here. Now that I'm actually riding around on it, I feel like the 60% thing up here is like a visual bug with the text or something. Like the text isn't updated, because this does not feel like 60%. This feels a lot more like 40%. So this might just be like misworded. It does still feel like 40%. Okay, I'm actually going to show you guys this because, like I said, there's a lot of like clunky cooldowns in the kit, but honestly the fluidity between them now with having 3 of them is very good. So like you can chain mobs that are close together down pretty quickly just by tabbing and clicking whatever button's not on cooldown. Like this actually feels really good to play, especially for like a low level. Like, do you guys remember like in old versions of WoW, like leveling a rogue, you just like spam Sinister Strike until like level 20? Like this is very cool that I can already like build up rage and rage dump and build up combo points and resources and dump those for like heavy hits, and this heals me when I consume them. Like we're only level 7, but the class already feels like it has a lot of depth to it, which is amazing. So I am making this video in the editing software I use as I go, which means you're going to notice some changes in the audio. I don't think it's really a big deal. Hopefully it's not, but I felt like it was worth mentioning that alongside my new mic, I have to remix my audio to pair good with the in-game volume. So yeah, just bear with me on that. Okay, so we just hit level 8, and we now have an ability called Flesh Hook, which, if I remember, is actually a mystic enchant on like a Loon or Area 52, and I think it just pulls things too. Yeah, basically like a like Death Grip, similar to Death Grip, which Death Knights have. That's actually kind of a cool ability that has good utility as far as like pulling packs of trash mobs and stuff in like late game content. All right, we leveled up again, and we got Flames of Xoroth. Burns up to 6 enemies in a 12-yard cone for 21 fire damage, dealing reduced damage per target hit, and reduces their attack speed by 20% for 6 seconds. And then it's got 15% increased scaling per death fire consumed. Interesting. So it's kind of like Rogue. You're building up combo points, and you just got to pick one really powerful one. But, you know, with this Pestilence thing having healing, and then the AoE and attack speed reduction on Flames of Xoroth, and the Flesh Hook to help you pull, I'm getting like tank vibes from this guy. Like I said at the beginning, my girlfriend picked this for me. So I'm actually, I didn't really go back and like reread it. I just kind of remember what she had told me about it. But she never told me if they could tank or not. Just looking at those kind of abilities, I would imagine they can tank. Remember how I was literally just complimenting how good and in-depth the class already felt at an early level? Well, it's about to feel even better because we just finally hit level 10 and we get to pick one of these. I'm not going to talk about them too much, so if you want to pause this part and read these, go ahead. The main reason I didn't cover all 3 parts of the talent tree selection is because there's kind of a lot to go over. Right now, we're going to head out of here because, honestly, I hate questing in Teldrassil. I barely play Alliance, and I don't really know great leveling paths, and I don't want to deal with going to Dark Shore and stuff, so we're getting out of here. Right now, I'm really torn between Hellfire and Defiance. You know what, I think while we're leveling and doing quests in the open world, I'm going to go with Hellfire, and then later on when we try Mana Storms, I'll probably switch to Defiance, because I feel like this would be a good spec for Mana Storms. But this has more mobility and probably more damage output, so we can just stomp through the open world. So right now, upon choosing the Hellfire talent tree, they gave me Knight of Xoroth, which removes the cooldown of Infernal Strike and reduces its cost by 5, which is this one. This was our Rage Dump one that gives us 2 Deathfire. And then they gave us the Path of Helnarath, which is just Heroic Leap, pretty much, it looks like. And then they also gave us Summon Greater Imp, so we have a pet now. Can we look at the pet ability? No, I don't think the pet has any abilities yet. We might have to level up to get those. Okay, so I actually hit level 11, which means we have 1 Hellfire point available. That goes straight into Blade of Xoroth, transforms Skulltaker into Blade of Xoroth. That was the one, remember, that had like almost 300% weapon scaling at max stacks. That's that ability. It's now Blade of Xoroth, which strikes an enemy dealing 43 Shadow Flame damage and increasing your movement speed by 30% for 6 seconds. It ignores immunities and resistances and does 25% damage per Deathfire consumed, which I think is lower scaling than Skulltaker had originally, but it does ignore immunities and resistances, so that's really nice. And then, like I said, for running Mana Storms, I think I'm going to try Domination, but this would be really nice in Mana Storms for sure. So real quick, what I did was I made a Demon Strike macro that also sets my pet to attack, and I was honestly kind of surprised that it all worked. Like, you can do the show tooltip and cast Demon Strike and pet attack. I guess it's not that crazy, seeing as how you can do similar things with like the legendary enchants on Area 52, but it's still just, it always baffles me that they have like the abilities so well made. We're gonna go up to this pack and see if we can 3-piece them real quick with the Flames of Xoroth. you can see you do get that bonus movement speed. And the jump doesn't have like a minimum range on it, which feels really good. Alright, so we just hit level 12 and we unlock Demon's Might, which is just an instant buff that you can cast on yourself or allies, and it increases their strength by 5%. Demon's Blood, which is a passive, it just gives you a 25% chance when you are hit to grant you a stacking healing received buff up to 10%, which is pretty good. Like I said, again, even though this is like a DPS spec, like with all the self-healing and stuff from it, I think you could probably tank with this. Like this would probably work really good in Mana Storm. Alright, I feel like a large part of what I'm going to do here on COA is level characters and try out all the classes. So I ended up folding and buying the plate DPS set of heirloom gear just because it's kind of hard to kill stuff without it, and because the XP rates are reduced on here compared to Area 52 Andaloon from what I've heard and what I've felt. So this will help us level a lot quicker. When you're wearing the full set of heirloom gear, you actually gain 70% additional XP on top of your aura of experience and on top of a potion of experience if you're running both of those, so you can level extremely fast with this setup. Also, since the last clip I took, we hit level 15 and unlocked a few new abilities. I believe Helma is new, which is basically just another rage dump that is a dot. And then there was Mitsa, which is basically just a warrior's whirlwind that helps you generate rage and does tons of AoE damage, which is really nice. That's going to be great in Mana Storms. That's going to be great in dungeons. If you remember at the start of the video, I showed off my Reaper and it was in full cloth BOA gear. I really wish I would have just bought this set and leveled my Reaper with it, because this makes a huge difference. And Reaper is also not in scaling. So like, yeah, I was just wearing it for the XP and running Mana Storms, and it was taking a while to kill everything. This would have made it so much faster. I finished the quest down in Moonbrook and then took a death skip back to Sentinel Hill, but I think once I turn this quest in, we're going to go to a different zone because I'm kind of too high of a level to be here still. Actually, we are going to stay here because we got the People's Militia, and I'm pretty sure the Highwaymen and stuff down here are closer to my level, so it should be some pretty good XP, and then hopefully when I turn that quest in, I'll level up again, and then we'll probably go to like Duskwood or something. Actually, probably not Duskwood yet. We'll probably go over to Red Ridge Mountains or whatever for a little bit and try to get to like 20, and then I'll probably go to Duskwood at like 20 or 21. The open beta for COA went live last night, so I'm actually sitting in dungeon queue seeing if we can't end up in one. There should be more people on now, so hopefully we can get a couple dungeons in too while we're playing. Forgot I had res sickness. I think I'm just gonna spend the rest of res sickness finally spending my 5 talent points that I forgot I had. Oh, never mind, our dungeon queue popped before I could even pick any talents. So after finishing that dungeon, we didn't really get any loot. I hit level 21 and I absolutely got trounced on the charts. I was about 6 or 7 levels below everybody else, and this dude was like level 50. But I also feel like I learned a lot from running that. And the thing I primarily learned was that Flames of Xoroth sucks, but Blade of Xoroth can do a lot of damage, and so can Infernal Strike. Okay, wait, we just got Xorothian Warsteed, which is just a mount basically that you can ride in combat, and then this swings your weapon around you, dealing weapon damage to enemies in an 8-yard area around you, but the damage is increased for every stack of Path of Hellfire you have. This is going to be insane in dungeons. In the world it sucks because I get hit like all the time and I lose my stacks right away because they're hitting me. But in a dungeon when somebody's tanking, I think all I'll have to do is run in a circle and spam this ability and I should pump. I wonder if, can we... It doesn't look like we can pop Blade of Xoroth. Oh no, we can. I just didn't have any rage because I was on the mount. I don't think you can generate rage when you're on the mount. But if you are on the mount and you do have rage, it does dismount you. So yeah, you can really only use the abilities that are specifically for mounted combat while you're on it. But I feel like that's going to go really hard in dungeons. So here's what we ended up taking for the talent tree. For Knight of Xoroth, we went with Hellscream, which is just a 10% damage buff. We went for Forge Hammer, which increases the active duration of Hellscream every time I get a crit. We went for Demon Fire Plating, which is kind of like a tank talent, but it leads down to Xorothian Strength, which gives me 4% more strength. Over here we have Helma, which we've probably been over. Pestilence of the Apocalypse, which increases fire damage taken by enemies within 8 yards by 3%. Hellfire Weapons. This one is going to be huge. Every third Infernal Strike now calls down Molten Hellrain. Damage dealt with abilities now has a 10% chance to generate an additional stack of Deathfire and Demon's Blood, and then Domination, which just increases the damage of Blades of Xoroth by 10%. So hopefully I do better in this dungeon. I'm really excited. Oh, they're already in the thick of it. Oh, I can't mount here. You can't use mounted combat in dungeons. That's really unfortunate. We have this new ability called Flay Corpse, and when you cast it, it just flays a nearby corpse, and then it heals you for 4% of your health every second for a few seconds, which is just wonderful for sustainability when you're in the open world, or could be good in PvP maybe even. Okay, so I just learned that that talent we took, Pestilence of the Apocalypse, actually replaces the other stance, which was Pestilence of Famine. This one causes you to heal for all the death fire you spend, but this one increases the fire damage taken by enemies within 8 yards by 3%. So it feels kind of like Death Knight presences almost, just not as strong, obviously, but it's really cool that you can kind of choose a stance. Okay, so we finished Wailing Caverns and ended up re-queuing. The DPS already feels a lot better because I can just kind of spam Infernal Strike, which does a ton of damage and builds up a ton of death fire. And then now with that talent, it's calling down the Hellfire Rain or whatever, and that does tons of AoE damage, even though I'm spamming my heavy single target damage as well. It's a good combination. Shout out to this guy Wabs, dude. He's our tank and he's just going insane. Look at the amount of mobs he's pulling, dude. Definitely need to get a weak aura to tell me when I'm at max deathfire stacks, because sometimes not most of the time I'm not looking here. I don't have the muscle memory to like pay attention to other stuff. I'm kind of looking at my action bars and trying to remember what everything is still. That group was insanely good, but the tank hit level 60 I think and ended up leaving, so the group kind of fell apart. But even with just those few short runs, man, we went from 18 to 26 already. Here's another Pestilence we ended up unlocking while we leveled up. Pestilence of Conquest. Emanate a Pestilence causing enemies within 12 yards to deal 5% reduced damage. And then when you unleash it, it silences nearby enemies for 3 seconds and burns 10% of their maximum mana. Do all the Pestilences have like an unleash effect? Unleash leeches 185 health from enemies within 10 yards and restores 5% maximum health. And then Pestilence of the Apocalypse, deal 50 fire damage plus an additional 17 every 1 second to nearby enemies in a 10-yard radius for 6 seconds. I wonder what unleashing it means. Is that just like when I click it? Doesn't look like just swapping Pestilence stances like actually does anything. So I'm assuming there's like an ability or something that we'll get to unleash the Pestilence. I'm not really sure how that works yet. We're back to spending talent points. We went with Xerothian Precision for the hit and expertise. We went with Warlord for the 5% melee haste. Then we went with Deathfire Oath. So whenever we generate Deathfire, it actually gives us an extra 5 rage alongside it to help me spam those Infernal Strikes. I didn't necessarily want to get Seeking Flame, but to progress, I kind of have to. My only options were Seeking Flame, Demonic Visage, and Hell is Coming. So I ended up taking Hell is Coming and Seeking Flame. So the video is already almost 20 minutes long, which means I think this is a good part to end it. Hopefully within the next week, I'll have a second video on this same class uploaded, and we'll be max level, showing off a max talent build and doing some max level dungeons and stuff, and show you guys what this class can do at the end game levels.